it's a familiar word, blending, and we really use this all the time. We have blending meetings, blending trips, blending fellowships, okay? Let's get together and blend, right? And it may be that if we don't have the proper view of this, that we might be doing what we think is blending, but is actually not, right? And thereby, we're not really in the central lane of fulfilling God's purpose. You know, blending is different from just meeting. Really, in society, there's all kinds of meetings, aren't there? Right? You can have a meeting with your supervisor, a meeting with your professor, a meeting as a study group, okay? Meeting is just people coming together, right? So how is that different from blending? If blending is crucial for God's purpose, we really want to make sure we have some understanding, some improved understanding of it, okay? And so the purpose of blending, one simple way to say this, is it's to usher in the reality of the body of Christ. The body of Christ is the church, right? And the church is the assembly of all the called out ones. It's the ecclesia. So as believers, as those who've been sanctified and separated from the world, the believers are the church. And Ephesians 1:22-23 tells us that the church is his body. Okay? So the church is altogether not something like a physical building, right? That's why I prefer to call the place where we meet at maybe like the meeting hall. That's where we meet together, right? But the church really is us. It's all those who meet together as believers. That's the church. Right? Furthermore, we say that Christ is the head of the church. Well, then the head has to be the head of a body. So the church is the body of Christ, right? But now, that's one thing to know the truth of that the church is the body of Christ. We are the body of Christ. But it's a further step to experience something called the reality of the body of Christ, where you really experience that we are all in the same body together, where it's not just individual members who are enjoying the Lord, right, living the Christian life, but they're somehow living this together in a corporate way all over the earth, right? And so blending is to bring us into the reality of the body of Christ. Okay, so we're getting something, we're trying to get at something that's a little deeper than just physically assembling together, physically getting together. And ultimately, what God needs is a corporate expression. He needs to have his body built up and expressed in a corporate way, right? It's not good enough for God just to have one strong believer, two strong believers, but all the believers need to be built up together, right, in a very real way, right? And that's the reality of the body. So not every kind of gathering is a blending. You know, we might get together and play some board games. We might get together and play some sports. Is there anything wrong with board games or sports? No. It's amusing. There's some pleasure there. We get to know one another, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't call it blending. Right? It's a recreational activity. Okay? It was something that was fun. Nothing wrong with that. At the same, right? But don't call it blending, because that in itself is not going to produce the reality of the body of Christ.